All keeping well. I'm back at my non-essential, and this is I'm just finished 3 days work in a row, and it felt wonderful being back to kind of normal. I have to say there was very a lot of people around this weekend. It's a bank holiday weekend here in Ireland, and there was a lot of people around, and I was surprisingly quite a few tourists. I've seen a lot of cars with UK, Welsh registrations and English registrations and Scottish registrations. So they've driven over on the ferry to avoid all the bullshit. There was quite a lot of French and a lot of Spanish around, and again they came over on the ferries. So there's lots of people just getting on with their lives without dealing with the airport thing, and the ferry thing is I guess is a way around it to a degree, but it doesn't have the. It's more expensive than flying, but takes longer. But I guess a lot of people find it more dignified, and there's something nice about arriving to Ireland on a ship, an island and so on, old fashioned or something. And I saw a lot of people not wearing masks. It was quite refreshing to see that, and because I have to wear one. Well, I've never worn a mask ever. I've worn a scarf or one of these, and but only when I have to deal with the public, because that's the place I work in. It mandates it, and I don't want to. I want to keep working, but that's why I don't judge anyone who wears a mask for their job or even has to get vaccinated for their job. That's their own business. But it's amazing. I want to talk about. I got someone. I met some nice couple there from Leitrim there. Loads. Everyone recognizes me now. It's really weird. It's like so many people know who I am now, and they asked me to give a shout out to a friend of theirs called Avril in Leitrim. So, hi Avril, thanks for being on board. But it's amazing how many people recognize me now. It's weird, but from obscurity in Ireland to like now, like so many people say, it's always lovely. It's always, hey Thomas, how's it going? Love the videos, this kind of thing. But like I said, the greatest education ever, and I've been thinking a lot about the concept of forgiveness of people and how they behaved during all this, the whole year and a half. And I was talking to this couple yesterday, and they were even saying people they knew who were, from the spiritual community, from the anti-fracking community, they all folded like a cheap camera and totally fell for all the propaganda, and still are hook, line, and sinker. And at the beginning, even if you have kids or you're sick, there was so much propaganda. It's understandable that it's nerving get coming in here. Oh, you did it, but uh, it's understandable that that they were upset and worried in the early days. I could imagine children were quite frightened by the incessant propaganda, especially when the Wuhan fuzzy videos and the Milan black magic trucks on the side of the street, and lined up on the street, black magic. But by this point, you've got to be out of it, to be still. But they still are. They still are. And this brings up the thing of who, I'm not a Christian, so I see one of the things, because I'm not a Christian, I have no reason to forgive my enemies, okay? And this is probably why I don't have any hatred in me. I don't think when people describe hatred to me, I've never experienced it. I've never hated anyone in my life. I've been upset with people, I've been angry with people, I've been hurt by people, but I've never had hatred in me, like the way people, like visceral. I've never had that. I've disliked people, but never hatred. And when I see people, like when I see things on the internet, like people talking about like their haters and stuff, or people like, I've actually encountered people on the internet who actually hate me. Like they don't know anything about me except what, like, some bullshit they've heard or made up crap or something they've invented in their mind, or they don't like something I said for some reason, you know. And it's not just that they dislike my opinions. They actually hate me to the point where they want to do me harm. And I've never done anything to them. And that I find amazing, but that's a real thing in this world. That there's so much, there's people out there full of hatred. And I've never experienced hatred. And I think one of the reasons that I'd never experienced hatred is that I'm not a Christian, and therefore I don't have this need to forgive. When you have to forgive, that creates an internal turmoil. You turn the other cheek and all that crap. That creates an internal, and what's really happening is you're sacrificing your honor for a very flaky theological concept. And so I've never forgiven anyone. Like, I forgive someone who did something stupid or wrong, or, just, and, I know people have gone to prison and they served the time, they came out. I have no problem. Once they didn't do something like really evil, like, children or something, but, or murder someone. But, and my attitude is like, they messed up, they went to prison, they didn't. Same with, I don't have any problem. I was an addict, an alcoholic, a drug addict. I won't, so it's like, or people have pissed me off in the past or did things to me and then came back and said, look, I was well out of order. I will totally forgive that. But not forgive it, I'll let it go. That's the word I would use. I would let it go. But otherwise, you won't get any of this kind of, like, turn to the cheek shite from me. And that brings us to the biggest culprits of the last year and a half. While, yes, I'm aware that some people were absolutely made terrified out of their wits by the incessant propaganda, it doesn't excuse certain behaviours. The first group that I feel I will never forgive are the TikTok dancing medical and hospital staff. Two reasons. The media was full of news stories saying that doctors and nurses were dying on the job from exhaustion. All the mainstream media, that hospitals were grim places at the moment, with bodies piled up to the ceiling, and staff worked to death and dying on the job. When the reality was, it wasn't. The hospitals were empty, and the staff were so bored that they started making TikTok dancing videos. And we're not talking about 10, 20, 30. Someone pointed out on one of my other social media accounts the other day that even the police, the ambulance service of Northern Ireland, right? Just Northern Ireland, the 6 counties of Northern Ireland, right? The ambulance service of Northern Ireland have literally dozens and dozens of videos of them doing TikTok dancing in Jerusalem and all this. And that's just one province, Ulster, right? About 2 million people there, and just the ambulance service alone has all these videos. And they repeat that all over the world. There are probably tens of thousands of these videos now that have been made. And all this was happening while cancer patients were refused treatment. Even dialysis people were refused treatment. And people died alone and in vast numbers while these scumbags did TikTok dancing routine videos in hospitals and outside hospitals and all that crap. That should never be forgiven. We should never, ever. We should now treat hospital staff, the heroes. We should now treat them the way we treat the Catholic clergy over the child abuse scandals. It needs to be held in the same level of contempt. That when you think of somebody, when you see a member of the Catholic clergy walking down the street, often your impulse is like, if they messed up or beat up or tortured kids or unmarried mothers, Magdalens. When you see someone who works in a hospital, you really have to start thinking to yourself, was he or she TikTok dancing while somebody who couldn't get cancer treatment, and they were soaking up the adulation as heroes? So that's, and not one of them, and I know they say, there was gag orders, and maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, and there was some people who came forward, including someone who's married to a relative of mine, who works in Dublin's largest hospital, and told me right at the start that Dublin, that well, it's the largest hospital on the north side, that the place had been empty, and all that was happening was the staff were sitting around and treats were being brought in non-stop, and cakes, pastry, pizzas were being delivered, Indian food, Chinese, anything they wanted was being delivered, and they were sitting around actually putting on weight, and a lot of the dancing was to actually try and exercise because of all the treats that were being brought to the hospital, and that was going on in every Irish hospital. At the same time, they were sitting there watching their social media and hearing people say, oh, they're legends, these people are frontline heroes. And literally all they were doing was sitting there eating, and not just like takeaway food. They were getting like posh restaurants were getting like big orders to supply like really beautiful food to them, and cakes and stuff like that. Sitting there getting fat, eating treats that were given to them for being heroes, and then have nothing else to do that they start doing TikTok dancing videos. And that went on everywhere. That's unforgivable. That's just unforgivable. The next one that's unforgivable is the experts and the scientists. Scientists must have had it so easy for so long, the voices of infallibility. And these people, now that especially what's come out with the whole Wuhan thing, these people, and you were called like a racist if you suggested it came from a bio, and it's shown now. Like, I mean, it was on the front of the cover story of the New York Post today that the virologist is saying that the sequence of two genes, twinned pairs in a sequence, does not happen in nature. It only happens in engineered viruses, and these engineered viruses immediately stand out from their coding. Even someone who's a basic virologist or geneticist will immediately recognize them as a man-made virus, because these double pairs of genes do not happen in nature. And there they were on it, and every single one of them said it came from a wet market. And if you suggested it was, these are all scientists in every country, including a well-known guitar player in this country, bad guitar player, that were protecting their, like the mafia protecting their turf. And they terrorized, from Ferguson in England and all the others, they terrorized millions of people, and they were loving it in a sadomasochistic way, having everybody doing it. These are all geeks who had no friends in school and no one liked them in school, and suddenly they're experts on the TV, and it's payback time, and they're having everybody literally burlesqued by this. Scientists must never be seen ever again as honest and decent people. They must be seen with extreme cynicism and caution. Replace the S in the word scientist with a $sign, and that's what you have. A whore does not love you. A scientist with a $sign for the first S is not a scientist. That's the second one. The third one, and possibly the most shameful of all. Now, this is outside. We always know the media and politicians are on, and the civil service are always scum. We've always known that. But this is what we've learned since this thing happened. The third one, and I think the most shameful one of all, are individuals who called people who were skeptical about the whole thing white nationalists. People who didn't have a racist or a bigoted or sectarian bone in their body, people who may have been of mixed race, people who have mixed race kids, people who've had a partner who's of colour, people who were of colour, were called white nationalists, Nazis, for questioning the whole thing, the whole year and a half. And I know certain people has changed my relationship. They didn't call me it, but I saw them saying this on their social media, that the same ones, the same they were saying that they're all racist, the people who are against it, because they're the same crowd. And I will never forgive them people. What they did was absolutely shameful. To take how these, and they're all lefties as well, and a lot of them are all hippies as well. How you could possibly say to a man who wants to continue his business, which he can do even with the restrictions. He can wear a mask, or a woman, or he can, do his job or do her job, and they just want to go back and do it. To call them, who probably never had a racist thought, only want to go back and follow their career or their job, to call them a white nationalist was absolutely despicable beyond words. Absolutely despicable. So they're the three ones that I'll never forgive. The ones that fell into that thing, and I'll never let them forget it. I'll never let them forget it. It's like if someone tells me the next time he hears I'm a nurse, I'm on the front line. Yeah, what, did TikTok dancing? You know, that's I'm that's what I'll, that's how I'll answer that. That's how we should all see these people from now on. You were TikTok dancing. That's what, the police making the Garda making the Jerusalem dance videos at locations the rest of us were banned from going to. It's changed everything. It has changed everything. And this is where the parallel society happens, because the parallel society is like, I was explaining to some friends who've been awake for years, and he was saying to me, all the things you said years ago, when I was saying, he was saying that people will definitely see through this, and you said they never would. You were absolutely right. You were absolutely 100% right, Thomas, I said to me. And he says, what's the answer? And I said, and he kept, he mentioned political parties, and I says, you have to stop all that. You have to stop. I said, look what happened with Trump. He was, he was not any kind of great savior, but he was a fly in the ointment of the globalists, to the point where they fixed an election in the US, and basically everything he said about Wuhan has come out to be true. And that was all the biotech Marxists, and they are like Marxists. You think about it, they give you Twitter and Facebook for free, and they get super rich, and all you get is punished and told what you can say and think. And I said, look, the society is changing. We could even be on the end. I'll talk about this in a minute. The society is changing, and this, we can't become survivalists in the woods. We don't live in America or Russia or someplace a vast wilderness, or Canada. So we have to do this within this society. So the parallel society is the way to go. We play the game, but the game doesn't own us completely. We tolerate what we can to get by, and we find ways around that. And human beings are remarkably resourceful. And like I told you, the one thing that the deal breaker for me, the ultimate line in the sand for me, is the vaccine. It's the needlecraft. And but again, I have nothing against someone who wants to take that. It's their own business. And but that's just me. I'm not imposing my will upon anyone else. So, it's a very dark situation that we find ourselves in, that we have to sort of reevaluate everyone around us into who had honor and who didn't, and you can always tell someone, doesn't mean you have to be hateful towards them. You just say, look, this was the great reveal, the apocalypse. The skin was removed off the wrapping, and we saw how you behaved. You called him a fella who never had a racist thought in his life, a white nationalist, because he wanted to open up his plumbing business. That's what you called him. You're unforgivable. You deliberately wanted to hurt him, and it wasn't because you were in fear. It's because you had power. You suddenly had power over others, to call them names, to humiliate them, to hurt their feelings. And there's a sadomasochistic element in that as well. A lot of these types who call names, or what we call haters on the internet, or people who run smear campaigns, there's a huge BDSM element to that. You could actually see them, if they make videos, you will see them being sexually excited on these videos. They're actually having orgasms as they're spewing their hatred out, and they're turned on by that. And these are very sick and deranged people. And we saw a lot of them to varying degrees in society, didn't we now? that they were like actually taking pleasure. Someone who had to be someone who would like probably dated black guys or black girls being called a white nationalist because they said they were wary of what was going on. I mean, it's just pure evil, pure evil, because it wasn't only gaslighting; it was also sadistic. It was, if there was such a thing as sadistic gaslighting, that was it. Sadistic gaslighting. Now, this could seem, I mean, even I'm a little sad thinking about it now, because some of these people I quite liked before this all started. And I saw some of them this week and I couldn't even look at them. I could not look at them for some of the things they said. Like about, what they called people who were, and this whole thing, when someone says, what do you know? Are you a scientist? No, I don't get money from corporations to give them the results they want. No, I'm not. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, no, of course not. Where's your medical degree? We live in an age of information. Just because you have a superiority complex for going to medical school doesn't make you the arbiter of all reality. It's as simple as that. I'm a nurse. I know. Why do you know? What are you? Oh, a nurse is a glorified, pharmacist. Really, that's really what a nurse is. The whole thing, and even the way the Nightingale hospitals and all this stuff they had in England, the Nightingales, and it was all theatre. It was all planned by the biotech things. And it became, as soon as the TikTok, like I said, I had totally understood that people in the early days had been very frightened and upset. But as soon as the TikTok videos started rolling in, by the dozen I might add, that should have been the end, right? And especially when Ferguson went off to meet his skivvy while he was having the rest of us locked down. That should have been, and in Ireland, the golf thing. But, people in this country worship the government and they worship politicians as gods. And they're also, Dave Cullen said that the other day with that chap down in Limerick. He runs a good show on Facebook. I think his name is James. Forgive me. A nice chap down in Limerick who does good reports. But he was talking to Dave Cullen the other night. And Dave Cullen was talking about the Irish have this insecurity thing. That's absolutely true. Absolutely. And they want to impress foreigners. So the more draconian something globalist is, the more the Irish will be the most draconian of all. So that the foreigners will give us approval. We still have this thing like there's a weird narcissism among the Irish. Like it was like, aren't we great? Sure, everyone loves us. This kind of bullshit, and we'll do whatever to maintain that image that everyone loves the paddies. We'll do whatever you want, including implement the most strictest lockdown in the world upon you. And Dave was right about that. Absolutely bang on. And I've seen it all my life. It's right. This is one of those weird. There's one of those queer weird things that the Irish have, along with calling politicians by their first names, which I know seems to have spread out to other countries. These are not your mates. These are not your friends. So right now, it's ending. It's really ending. And with the latest revelations that have come out regarding Fauci and all that, it's well over. And it's just a matter of them. It's their exit strategy is really all they have to go for now. And I saw it this weekend. The masses aren't buying it anymore. They may be going along with it, but they're not buying the hype anymore. But it's funny, people have said to me that lots of people have said to me that I kept so many people's spirits going during this. Well, now that it's ending, I'm feeling kind of sad. I feel sad about it, and not because it's ending. Now the pain. I'm now allowing myself to feel the pain of the hurt that this caused me, and I'm feeling it now. And a lot of that is disappointment in people I thought should have known better. But that'll pass and we'll get back to normal. But it's funny now. Now I'm saddened about it. It's like I'm walking around this weekend. It's a bank holiday here. It's now a Monday, and I'm walking around here and I see everybody having a great time. The beach is packed. The beaches are absolutely packed in Sligo, and they were selling record amounts of ice cream this weekend. And I'm looking around and seeing everyone happy and having a nice time, and I'm thinking to myself, there was absolutely no reason for this whole what they did to us with this curfew, this martial law. There was no need for it, and it's like now it's not. I wouldn't say I'm not angry about it. I'm saddened and hurt by it. It's hurt me. But again, that's a temporary thing. It's just one of those things. You know, like when a relationship ends, there's a period afterwards where you think about it and you start going like, this is kind of like the intensity of when it's ending prevents you from having, and also the survival aspects of getting through it. But then when it's over and done with, and that's how I'm feeling about all this right now, that's when the kind of sadness of unfortunate, the unfortunate nature of it all comes to the fore. So, remember those three things. I won't ever forgive those people, those three groups I mentioned, and I'll always remember them, and I'll never let them forget it as well. I won't say it to their face like you called people Nazis who wanted to open their business. I won't call them that to their face, but they'll get a cold shoulder from me for the rest of their lives. And like I said, it's very sad. It's very sad. No one wants to be like this. But when the going gets rough, you find out who your real friends are. You really do. But you also find out who your real enemies are too. And in some ways, that's the great gift that comes from something like what we went through in the last year and a half. The clarity. Okay, love yous all. Take care. And I'll talk next time.